So hello then, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to this qualifying session, just rounding out here at Paul Ricard. I'm sure this was Saturday night's XCL race that starts at about 11 o'clock at night, and as you can see there, topping out the leaderboard, Cozy Learner smashing a 152.8, absolutely obliterating me in sector 2. Very similar sector times throughout sectors 1 and sectors 2, but sector 3, I don't know where he finds all that time. It's like 7/10 of a second in one sector. So very, very different approaches to sector 3. But yeah, I'm definitely not the quickest driver through sector 3. That's for sure. Just looking at the rest of the lap times from Ecomico and Bad Ben, also doing a better job of sector 3 than myself. Sector 2, probably a lot of that comes down to the longs back straight, but these were some of the issues that I was dealing with on the night themselves. Everything didn't particularly go to plan for me during this event, and I was just taking a look at the new livery that I'd created, just seeing how it looked in the replay after doing the qualifying session. And I just thought I'd choose something a little bit brighter for a nighttime race rather than going with the usual colour scheme that I choose. But on returning back to the grid, I just seem to have this weird glitch. As you can see, I just thought I'd go back. I think I was trying to get back into the setups, and you'll see the issue that I'm confronted with. It's just this weird sort of loading screen, and I can't seem to progress past this. And obviously we've got the event that's starting very soon, and I was very anxious as to whether I was actually going to make it back in time. Nothing seemed to work through this section, and then eventually it just crashed me back out to the main menu, and just trying to get loaded back into the game as quickly as possible, really. You can see it there, just struggling to load, and then just ended up coming back out quickly through the menus, back through the password section and back onto the grid. And unfortunately for me, that then planted me at the very back of the grid, which was pretty disappointing, to be honest. Obviously quickly into the setup. Fortunately, I've not really changed very much, and I've done a fair bit of running earlier in the session to try and get the tyres into a good temperature window, and I think I did have a chance to actually save the tyre temperatures that I was working with. So just putting that 1 litre of fuel into the car ready for the pit stop, and yeah, feeling pretty confident in returning back to the grid. Obviously something that I discussed in the video that I'd put on the channel prior to this one coming out. I'll probably do the other video first. It's more like lessons learned from this evening's race, really. Looking at Cozy Learner's lap, going a little bit more in depth with my own lap, and just seeing where I could possibly progress the setup to better that sector 3 time. But we'll get more into that in the other video. For this one, we're just going to be taking part in tonight's event. Obviously the cars further up the grid setting off, and it's just a process of warming those tyres. We'll skip through this warm-up lap as we get into it, but just looking down at the dashboard, we can see that all the tyres are at 70 degrees. We've got tyre pressures that are outside their optimal window of somewhere between 25.5 and 27 psi, really. You can see I'm just applying the brake pedal, moving the brake balance. I think I do move the brake balance all the way rearward, but you can just see by the front of the discs getting really nice and hot and red. We're starting to get increases in the tyre pressure. Obviously the front right tyre pressure is already above that 25.5. We'll start probably to see the front 2 tyres above 80 Celsius. It really is a good dashboard in the Ferrari. It gives you a lot of detailed information that would really be beneficial in other cars. But as you can see there, as the discs are getting nice and warm, they then start to radiate that heat out into the rest of the tyre itself, never really hitting the extremities. You've got another car spinning off to the left hand side there, just on the warm-up lap, probably getting a little bit overexcited with a little bit of traction control disengaged. But yeah, the tyre carcass at the very outer edges never actually gets very hot. Obviously we've got very low track temperatures, 16 Celsius on the night. Track temperature and ambient temperature very similar. Obviously that then starts to cause us problems with tyres losing temperature throughout the race, and it really is a case of how you're going to sustain a good level of tyre grip and tyre temperature. Well, one thing that I would definitely suggest is closing out your brake ducts, so we've just got one at the front and one at the rear. So jumping forward a little bit, getting ready for the start of the race, and we're on the start finish line, and just really hanging back here. There's no real need to rush and make any places through this lap. This is purely about trying to avoid the forthcoming carnage throughout these few corners on the start of the race. Whenever I start a race like this, I just hold back and just wait for the sea to part, more or less. You can just see the carnage up ahead, and it's just a case of having enough time to avoid accidents, really. One thing that I'd definitely suggest, places like Spa as well, as we come into another section of carnage, just cars all over the place. It really was scary. But yeah, as we come up on Jono's, just hold back a tiny bit here, because I want to get a nice run out onto this long back straight and make up some places. You can see just dodging cars left and right, really. Surprised I didn't get a track limits penalty for that. But yeah, as you start the lap at Spa, it's definitely one of those cases where if you hold back at the start of the race, everyone just bunches together through Eau Rouge, and if you just hold back a little bit and get yourself a nice run up through Eau Rouge, you can normally make about 4 or 5 places just through people bunching together. So the first portion of the lap is really about getting the tyres into their window, getting everything up to temperature, and just avoiding accidents when you're starting at the back of the grid. Obviously we've started in 27th place. We've already got cars that are probably sat in the pit. You can see a number of cars already sat in the pit trying to repair damage, and yeah, it's just a case of getting your eye in, getting the tyres up to temperature and just avoiding accidents. Like I say, lap 1 isn't really about trying to make up positions, because you just end up losing too much time on lap 1 fighting with other drivers when you really haven't got the temperature in the tyres. So starting from 27th on the grid, we're already up to P12 on lap 2, which is just phenomenal, really. Really looking forward to eventually getting into Silver League and racing a full grid of silver rated drivers. So I really am trying to progress and do as many races as I can do, really, without spending my whole life sat in the sim rig. But as you can see, my brakes are very hot, but as you see, the braking phase is all over now. A long portion of this is just flat out, and everything is cooling down. So you can see the front right tyre pressure at 84 Celsius, and that will only start to cool as we approach the end of this lap. And if you bear in mind that 80 degrees is the optimal tyre pressure or tyre temperature window that we need to be looking for, we're just sort of dropping outside that window as we reach the end of the straight again. Obviously we start turning in, traction starts to build through the tyres, and we start generating some more heat again. But yeah, closing out the brake ducts, the whole idea is to generate heat through the tyre. It might very well take the brakes into the non-optimal window of probably over 600 degrees. Just trying to get the cut back here on I'm sure it's Black Convoy. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be Black Cowboys. But yeah, it's as you can see, obviously the brake discs getting very yellow. They're probably hitting something like 700 to 800 degrees temperature. But again, you can see that front right tyre is almost dropping out of the window again, as much as the front left tyre is probably almost at the edge of the other extremes. We really don't want to be hitting over 100 degrees tyre temperature. So slightly up on the delta, obviously that starts to drop away again. Another car just going backwards off the circuit. Wasn't sure whether I'd see him coming out the other side of that corner. So out onto the back straight again. Just looking down at the traction control that I'm running, I did mention in the previous video that I'd be running TC8, and then as you all know, as I come off the corners I tend to drop the traction control. I know Cozy Learning was running 5 on his traction control, and I did try it. I can work with the traction control in a lower figure, but I always feel like I'm tentative to get back on the power at full throttle, whereas rather I prefer to know that I'm not going to be squirming around putting the acceleration down nice and early. Obviously the brake balance again is a little bit more forward than I would usually run, but running so little rear wing, I think I'm running 4 on the rear wing, just running a slightly higher brake balance just allows me to not get the rear of the car stepping out too much. So setting a 154.4, pretty happy with that lap, but I really would like to have seen myself into the more consistent 153s, but even though I set a 153.8 during the qualifying session, obviously we've got 50 litres of fuel that we're starting the race with, so it was kind of disappointing to see myself not closer to the 53s really during the race. Never really seemed to get a good toe down this back straight either. I really don't know whether Cozy Learner, when he set his 152, whether he got a beautiful toe down the back straight. He might very well have done, but like I said, most of his lap time was gained through sector 3, so we're just kind of approaching sector 3 as we go under the flag here. So from here onwards was really where he gained nearly a full second really. Whether to stick it round the outside, it's always a closing window. ROP here looks like he's already had a bit of a tangle on the right hand side of the car. A few scuffs and scrapes. I'll try and stick it up the inside. No track limit penalty, so I think I managed to get away with that, using as much of the curb as I could do. But I really didn't want to be held up by drivers obviously coming from the back of the grid. My main goal was to really try and make it to the podium. Unfortunately that's not going to happen in this video, but I give it my best shot really. But obviously getting held up at any stage during the race is just gonna it's just gonna make you go backwards, I guess. So you really want to be on it every single lap. I'd have loved to have landed well with some of the traffic and got a really nice toe down this back straight. Obviously running very little rear wing, catching people down the back straight was definitely going to be a good place to earn some lap time. So yeah, it is quite nice to use the MFD on the left hand side there to see other drivers around, but I do tend to use the MFD a lot just to know what traction control I'm running, whether I can quickly adjust my brake balances. I know I can see all that information down on the dashboard, but I do tend to like to want to see the MFD. So another thing that I was suffering with a few weeks ago was getting a huge amount of disconnections. I think I tried one race, I think it was at Watkins Glen, and I think I had about 8 disconnections throughout one race, and I really did think that it was something game related that was causing the issue. But quite some time ago, when I was taking a little bit of a break from Assetto Corsa Competizione, I was doing a little bit of PUBG and just looking online about I won't say connection times, it's probably like the ping rating and latency and stuff, and they recommended using Google's DNS, which was 8.8.8.8. So I used that during PUBG, which really did help cause a lot less lag, but coming back to this game, it seemed to cause me a lot of disconnections. So going back to Virgin's DNS, which you can access through your advanced settings for your broadband within the Xbox menus, just stopped that altogether. I did think it was something to do with the game, so I ended up uninstalling the game and reinstalling it, which is quite an easy process, just using the Xbox main menus. You can choose whether you want to uninstall sections of the game that you've chose as add-ons, and I just ended up uninstalling the main game itself. I kept all the add-ons, came back to the game, and all the detail that's usually there, all my lap times and everything, was all still intact. All the track medals and everything, it was all there, no issues whatsoever. But prior to changing my DNS, I was still getting the disconnections, so uninstalling the game wasn't really something that solved that for me. It was changing that DNS setting. But thankfully everything is back to normal now, and I've had no disconnections since changing that, so pretty pleased with how that's changed. So yeah, braking into turn 1 then, slightly up onto the curb, almost running just slightly wide there, but you can see there's lots of time to be gained in that first sector. I'd like to think there was a 1:53 lap on at some point during this session. Always really tentative round that corner, trying to get on the power as soon as you can, drop the traction control. I seem to have kept it in TC8, just having a little look at who's around me, just to see how far ahead up the next driver is, see if anyone else around me has also done their pit stops. So I do keep flicking through that MFD. Reaching 286 kilometers an hour then, at the end of the straight. Not the most comfortable of turn-ins. It's a very small movement on the wheel despite having 16 on the steering ratio. I think if you really did throw the car in, it would just be sideways. So running so little on the rear wing gives me a good chance of overtaking cars down that back straight, which was the main mentality really behind using a lower rear wing for Paul Ricard. I was hoping that was really where I was going to be making the most of my places. So another car into the pit lane then, and we're up into P7. still getting fairly good tyre pressures all around as well, 26.6. I think I went slightly lower on the front tyre pressures, trying to use some of that slightly lower pressure to get more grip from the front of the car. You'll see during the other races, or the other video, that Cozy Learner uses second gear through that first section. I really do. I've tried hanging on to second gear and it just throws me out of the little corner. So I'm not quite sure how he's got the car set up. I know he's running more rear wing or more downforce altogether. But slightly up on this lap, would be nice to see this into the two 153s. If we can get this second or third section of the lap nailed. I think one of the things as well in the Ferrari is you come down through the gears. It really does benefit traction just by allowing the gear to come down a little bit more before you change into the lower gear. So really just let the engine notes start to die down before you choose the next gear. I think changing gear higher up through the rev range just unsettles the grip from the car. So it's quickest lap so far for myself, 1:54, but as you'll see from some footage later on in the video, throughout, I think it's maybe the first 11 laps, Cozy Learner's into the 1:53s. I think he sets a 1:53.3 very early on in the race to pick up the fastest lap of the race. So yeah, coming through here, he carries third gear, then into second gear, holds on to second gear through all this section, which really is surprising. So another car just up ahead as we come out onto this long back straight. Just a little bit too far away for me to pick up any sort of slipstream. I think after finishing this race I did actually put Forza Horizon 5 on for just a little bit of fun. To be honest, it's been a long time since I've visited Forza Horizon, and I really did find myself wondering what to do in the game. I just end up driving around trying different cars out and trying to get the wheel to feel somewhat drivable. But not long now, just a few more weeks before Forza Motorsport 8 arrives with us. I know there's been a few glimpses of Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown doing the rounds, which really does look disappointing from the footage I've seen so far. Quite what Forza Motorsport's going to bring to the sim racing is anyone's guess, to be honest. I think it could be good, but I don't think the racing's going to be as good as the racing you'll find here on XCL servers and in ACC. I think for anyone that enjoys close racing and I guess getting rid of a lot of the gimmicks, turbos and car parts to make a game, I think if there's a section in Forza Motorsport where it's more of a default car setup and you can just change the setup itself, or even just stock setups, the racing will be far better. But I'm hoping there's going to be something within Forza Motorsport that will pique my interest. As much as I enjoy racing on Assetto Corsa, and as much as it feels the most realistic game on console just now, there's got to be a point where I guess you just want to enjoy driving to enjoy the experience of driving, I guess. I do enjoy the open road sections of Forza Motorsport. Some of the country lane sort of drives. And I'm sure there'll be a section within Forza where all the menus work, and we're not still stuck with this situation where we've got a special events page with nothing on it. I really do find that disconcerting from the developers of this game on console, that they've still neglected to fill that section of the game. Fortunately, like I've mentioned before, XCL are providing that little scratch, I guess, or scratching that itch. If, like myself, you enjoy doing the hot lap sessions, they run a hot lap session every Sunday. I guess it lasts all week now. The servers are open all week. It used to be just on a Sunday afternoon, but you can set a lap throughout the week, and eventually the leaderboard shuts on a Sunday evening, and we all obviously get to find out how fast Cozy Learner was throughout the week if he's taken part in the event. But yeah, a number of really good drivers on XCL now. I think they're up to over 1,000 drivers, which is fantastic from where the website first began. Not sure if we're going to get a bit of a battle here with Tony. I'm sure Springsphere's probably a lapped driver. I've seen him in a number of lobbies, obviously trying to get better. Tony Doc also in the Ferrari then. Just running a little bit wide as he left that door open. I really can't remember where we managed to pick him off here. He's going to pull into the pit. Oh no! He's decided to stay out. Just weaving around a little bit, trying to break that toe. It'll be interesting to see where we make a move here. So many races, I really don't know where this is going to go. Maybe we just managed to pick him on this long straight. Get up nice and close under the rear wing. Try and get a good exit. Stay under that rear wing for as long as we can. Now we're going to get him on this long back straight. He's probably running a very similar amount of wing, to be honest, with the way we're just pulling alongside ever so slowly. And he's definitely got a better line into this corner than me. I'll just back off a little bit. So very unsure going into there. Obviously came down the gears a little bit too early. Intrigued to see where I make this overtake now, or whether he actually pulls into the pits here. 6 or 7 minutes left of the race. Another back marker moves away. Brilliant, thank you very much. So pulling into the pits then just allows me to get on my way. Still loads of time in that first sector to make up. So a nice exit off the corner, managing to keep hold of that 2/10. Would have loved to have just been a tiny bit closer to this car in front, which probably looks like another Ferrari. I think the Ferrari is slightly overpowered, to be honest. Oh, so we can see that it's a Lamborghini. It really does seem to be pulling out all the lap times, the new Ferrari. I remember back to when the BMW seemed to be topping out the leaderboards, and a long time back the Bentley Continental seemed to handle really well. It would probably be nice to have a re-look at the BOP for each of these cars, get them more on a similar level playing field. As much as there is always going to be dominant cars, I guess that's what the constructors or manufacturers are paying for to be in this game, or what the game developers pay them for to be in this game. So you see the lap leader in the pits along with another bunch of drivers, obviously everyone pitting at the same time, and I decide just to stay out, see if I can make up some places. Just taking avoiding action there from the spinning Porsche. So losing a few tenths, nearly half a second through the first sector. As soon as you go offline, you're picking up all that rubber, dirty rubber off the circuit. It'll take you a number of corners to clean up those tyres. And it's amazing, it really is, when you're coming from the back of the grid as you come into these races. Every single lap counts as to making places through those pit stops. Nailing that pit stop as well is so important. Second lost in the pits, or 2 or 3 seconds not lining up correctly in your pit box. You know, you try and make an extra 2 or 3 seconds per lap. There's so much time to be made in the pits. I really don't understand why a lot of people don't practice their pit stops, just to try and get them absolutely perfect. Obviously we all make mistakes, we're all only human, trying to get into that pit box or the entrance into the pit. Something that I probably spent about 10 laps. I just go round into the pit, into my pit box, do a 1 litre refill and back out, and I just look at the lap time as I come back out. So I'd try and do a really fast out lap and then just come all the way back round, back into the pit box, and probably do that about 10 times. So then I know where I'm braking as I come out of the pit into turn 1, which is very different from if you've been absolutely maxing it down the start finish straight. Gives you an understanding of where you can actually pull into the pits at absolute flat out speed, where you need to be braking, punching that pit speed limiter and getting the car slowed down to 50 kilometers an hour. All these things will help you get a faster lap or a faster pit stop. Just being as efficient as you can. Just checking over then my pit entry, making sure everything's selected for that pit stop. We've got 1 litre of fuel in, we're not going to be changing tyres, and we can see we've got a 3.2 second stop, and I've got no doubt I'll be taking that at the end of this, because there's 1 more lap to go I think, with the lap time running out. Another back marker here that we're coming up on very quickly. Not sure where he's positioned himself on the corner. Pharrell thankfully just stays out to the left hand side and allows me to get on my way again. So let's see how we get on as we come into this pit stop. A little bit wide of the apex there. A nice wide sweeping line into the pits. Banging that pit speed limiter. So I do like to stay out on the left hand side, coming through the Kyalami pit lane. I remembered where my box was. There's a big divot just as I guess you can drive out there. So just turning in, finger on the ignition button, turn the engine off and up we go. Foot on the accelerator, press the start button and away we go. A nice beautiful stop. I think Red Bull would be proud of that one. So back out into P6. Nice bit of a gap behind me as well. Managing to keep that position. I'm sure that MFD will be back up any second. I guess once we're out onto the long back straight, we can start looking at menus again. Obviously we've lost some tyre pressure, just trying to get that back up again. I think it obviously shows down in the delta 25.5 is where we're starting to see some better tyre pressures. And we can see the driver there, Bad Ben, getting a drive-through penalty, so he's obviously going to incur a penalty which allows me to bump up to P5, I think. Still just a few positions away from taking a podium. So Cozy Learner then picking up #1 slot. We'll have a little look at the leaderboards as soon as the race finishes. Some lovely fireworks there as we cross the finish line. And the obligatory flash of the lights at the end of the race. 4 litres of fuel left. I think I put 52 litres in for a half-an-hour session, so maybe just go bang on 50 litres of fuel. Just make sure I save that replay. I think I saved the highlights as well. It did actually save both of them. I do tend to filter down any of the replays. I don't save them for very long, so my replay section is usually quite empty. So just wanting to return back to the menu and just have a look through these lap times. Obviously Cozy Learner picking up fastest lap of the race, and you can see there 1:53.7, 53.3, 53.3, 53.6, 53.5. Brilliant lap times. I'd have been happy to have just picked up 1:53 to be honest, but to see them really is fantastic. See my own lap times. So looking at my pit stop as well, managed to take 5 seconds out of him on my pit stop lap. So even if I'm hitting 1:54s throughout the whole race, obviously I've got 5 laps worth of 53-second laps by setting a better pit stop. So it really does show you how important that pit stop really is. But thanks for watching guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope to see you on the next XCL race that I'll be taking part in. Until then, ciao for now.